Hey everyone, this is going to be your Week 2 ISK Legacy recap. It was a bit of a hectic weekend. I think some of you are aware of this, but maybe some of you are not. I was away for the weekend being a support crew as my significant other is now officially an iron person and has a medal to prove it. If you are ever in a situation where you are a support team for someone who's doing something so rigorous and intensive, just hypothetically, if you're going to book the day after Airbnb as a nice little gesture to break up the car ride on the way home and you think Italian Alps, that would be amazing. Maybe pay attention to the accessibility of the location and how easy it is with the hills to get in and out physically. Just speaking in hypotheticals, just trying to throw out some life advice for anyone who'd like it. Anyway, it was still a great week in the NFL. We lost our Chubb collectively, but that really only impacts a couple of us. Lots of lows, lots of highs, way more highs. So we're going to kick it off similar to last week, do a little bit of an NFL breakdown, then we'll get to the matchups, then week 3. So here we go. All right, before we get to the matchups, going to try and keep it as relatively quick as I can. 3 points about NFL week 2. First one, in opposition to what I said last week, I think I said the quarterbacks sucked last week. They sucked slightly less this week. In fact, some of the ones that we were anticipating, like the Josh Allens or Lamar Jacksons of the world, actually had very solid weeks. There are some that are still struggling, and I'm sure we'll get there when we get to the matchup by matchup breakdown from what happened. But when quarterbacks are back, points are on the board. When points are on the board, fantasy owners were happy because we see more green than red. So even though you may have faced somebody who was going off, hopefully you had some players in your lineup that gave you some optimistic feelings about the week. Some of you definitely not so much, but for the most part, I think the scores being up helped make it a bit livelier. So good there. In terms of panic that I mentioned last week, we've got our panic and then potentially their panic. Our panic, injuries. We already had a bunch of injuries last week. We had some season enders, which was quite rare for week 1. We kept the trend going for week 2. But in terms of our running backs now, in terms of ones that will be questionable, first off, we know a few that are out. Obviously, Dobbins from last week. If you watched Monday Night Football or you saw the clip that was going around, people who watch college will think of people like Willis McGahee, or in basketball, Kevin Ware, when it's like a nationally televised game and a knee goes in the opposite direction or a leg does because the knee's not working. Not a fun thing to watch. I try to avoid them if I can, especially Nick Chubb. He's one of the only Cleveland Browns that people actually like. Big shame. He's also a first-round pick, so that can be troublesome. But obviously this waiver wire was a race to his backup. But Chubb being out, and then we got a lot of maybes. People like Barkley, Montgomery, Eckler, and Jones still could be on that list. We've got some quarterbacks, obviously Burrow and Richardson. They're kind of trying to fight through. Sure, I should throw out the entire New Orleans backfield also on the questionable list. We've got some receivers that left the game, and we got to give a check on them, like Cooper, Waddle, DJ, Adams even, Mooney, although I don't know who's going to throw him the ball. Long story short, if you look into your lineup and you don't have any people out or questionable, you are one of the few. I think already by week 2, we're dealing with people banging up. By the time this video goes out, waiver wires will have cleared, so we'll see how the dust settled and who got some of the backups and who wanted to make sense of what the Giants' backfield may or may not look like, or who's just playing it chill and not panicking because they drafted their backups already and they're set to go. I will expect, though, the weekly moves should be going up around now. Maybe even get some trades. Who knows? I know that's difficult to do. Some people hate to do it, but let's pull the trigger and see if we can make something happen. Last point is more about actual NFL panic, which we can read into as fantasy owners. There are some 0-2 teams. I know there's some 0-2 fantasy teams, and again, I'll touch on those when the matchups and next week's matchups pop up. I think the Arizonas of the world, the Carolinas, sorry Bears fans, but Chicago, Houston, I don't think they're a shock to be 0-2. Denver, you could make the argument. Minnesota was a playoff team last year. But then you look at the Chargers, you look at Cincy, and you look at New England. I think Cincy probably standing out as the one that people wouldn't have expected to go 0-2. So do they panic? Technically, I don't know if people are aware of this. There's only 3 teams that I could find and that I think exist that went 0-2 and still won the Super Bowl. Giants, Dallas, and New England being those 3. So let's see. In terms of the 2-0 teams, I think a lot of them, again, we expected, but certainly a few that we didn't. If you're looking at the NFC South, I don't know if everyone thought that 3/4 of the division would be 2-0, but they are. San Francisco, not as much of a surprise. Having 3/4 of the NFC East, I think Dallas and Philly people were chill with, but Washington is definitely a surprise. Baltimore, Miami, not sure if that's if people saw that one coming or not. I know they did have their fan bases that thought they'd have good starts to the year. Either way, it was a great swing week for week 2. Sets us up for a solid week 3. And if you didn't look it up, please Google. We're doing this for America this week. Gotta love referees. Anyway, on to the matchups. All right, well, not necessarily our closest matchup in terms of point differential, probably our most exciting in terms of guns a-blazing. We had our first and our third overall top scorers of the week go after each other in quite an epic battle that did last a little longer than you'd think and kind of came down to a few unfortunate injuries here. But, Marco, congratulations. You are our top scorer this week. Just like me after a long family visit, if I don't do my running, you were pushing 200, so good for you. I think in general, if you're going to score that much in a league like this, you got it from all angles here. First off, congratulations on, I think you're the first team this year to put Mac Jones as a starter and actually win, and I don't just mean in fantasy. But your defense was your low scorer with 10, as your defense should be. Your next lowest was your tight end, but that was still 17, which was still, I believe, the second best tight end performance of the week. We'll get to number 1 later. And if that's your kind of weak points, I should say Pittman was in there and your quarterback there didn't do so great. But in general, people overperformed as they've been doing. Your running back combo, Pollard and Robinson, seems pretty daunting right now. Evans came back to life. Apparently, he just realized that he has to score or he has to get 1,000 receiving yards this year or the apocalypse happens. So he decided to get a whole bunch this week to give him some time. A couple receivers, people were worried about their quarterbacks. They did just fine. Daniel Jones discovered that Arizona sucks. So he was quite fine. So across the board, you did fine. Even on your bench, you left some points here in terms of some receivers. Maxon, you didn't make that many mistakes here. Unfortunately, Najee was a no-no, and he's not really getting the love that you need. San Francisco, surprisingly, who knew the Rams actually cared this year? That kind of bit you. And realistically, the one thing that's been the two things I think that hurt you this week, but the one that's been a thorn in your side all year is with Burrow being shaky, Chase is just not getting the love he needs, and that's not giving you the love that you need. So if he would have performed a little bit better, maybe you had a shot there. You did have some people on the bench, but it wasn't anything to do with choices you made. It really was just some of the performance. Now on the plus side for you, Cousins was in this league the top rated quarterback, just over Daniel Jones, who was number 2. So congrats there having him. Gabe Dave went off, which was huge for you. McCaffrey has been steadily getting you points, and Lockett doing great. Unfortunately for Richardson, he might have been the top scoring quarterback, but went in face first and slammed his noggin. So unfortunately, he's on protocol. So you're going to want to keep an eye on him. Things go a little bit differently. Who knows? You might actually be able to make up for it. But if you play a guy who's got 200, sometimes there's just not much more you can do. So it's a shame, but you're both 1-1. You're both high-scoring teams. So let's see how it goes in week 3 for both of you. But Marco, in the meantime, congrats, buddy. All right, our second highest scoring team was both Connor and Seamus. They advanced to 2-0, and they're our top seed because not only are they winning, but they're winning pretty big. Unfortunately, that meant for Rushke, he did lose his 1-game win streak. 135 still okay, still decent, but in a week like this, apparently not going to be quite enough. Connor and company, how you all did it. I mean, Connor, your namesake, kind of came through, played him in a couple leagues. Not super pumped about the fact that, again, Arizona maybe just discovered the Giants aren't that good, or maybe they're better than we thought. Andrew's waking up has got to feel good. I think he was our tight end 3 this week, and so having a big name back there. You did have some letdowns in Ridley, and obviously your defense, again, ran against Washington, who apparently is 2-0 and might be legit, or maybe Denver sucks. We don't know. Speaking of Denver, though, you did get Wilson and good performance out of him, and Mahomes has just been pretty consistent. So aside from Swift going off, he was our number 1 overall running back. So I think a lot of people had him on the bench in other leagues I've played in, so congrats on that. And CeeDee Lamb and Dallas obviously rolling through. Again, I think it's just you had a couple downers, but everybody else just kind of performed as they should. On your bench, though, man, you were like killing the waiver wire. You got people like Moss, Love, Paka Nakua. Come on, you got like one of the best names and 25 receptions in 2 weeks, and he's going to be on your bench? Dude, come on, that's killing me. Embarrassment of riches. But that's a good problem to have, I suppose, because it looks like even there's as many points on your bench as some people had in their starting roster. So congrats there. Rushke kind of ran into one. I think the biggest Achilles heel for you right now is where you were born. Chicago is killing you, my friend. The Bears are not a great team. Apparently, they're a great team to play against. I'm sure that'll come up next week when people realize who that they're playing. But Fields, they just seem set on trying to make him a quarterback instead of having design runs, so I'm sorry about that. You did get one of the few Bears that actually did do well, so I guess I can't crap on you with more, but Herbert kind of was a gutter there. In fact, your running backs were kind of underperforming, but you just didn't get saved as much by Hill either. Having a monster performance from last week, he kind of got keyed up on. Not every week they're going to play New England's defense, though, so I wouldn't threat too much. Dallas's defense was actually not our number one, but it was close. It was our number 3, and one of the few defenses that we actually had in the top 5 that started. I don't think too many people had Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay, knowing that they would be one of our top scoring defenses. Aside from that, buddy, so, I mean, we got another matchup here. We got another 1-1, but Kent, since you've scored so much, you haven't fallen too far down the rankings. And Connor and Seamus, congratulations. You are currently our top seed. You're going back to last year's form when you ran us all the way through, so you're the one to beat right now. Congrats on being 2-0. All right, Gene, not our third top scorer, because Maxim would yell if I said that, but you are a third top scoring winner, so you get the third slot here. And in fact, this was the closest margin. Just under 11 points was quite a tight matchup, and we'll get to Jeff's bad luck on that one, because I think you probably know where I'm going with that. But just to cover Gene, you did a great job. You've got a lot of, Allen coming through and having the number one wide receiver performance. Hawkinson, again, he was a top 5 last week. He's a top tight end this week, so I believe he's the overall tight end 1 right now. So congrats on that. That was kind of enough to push you past. There were pretty big performances as compared to their rivals, but also you had 2 quarterbacks who put up good points for you. That's a wonderful thing about a 2 QB league. Unfortunately, Waddle leaving the game a little bit early. Hopefully his head didn't get rocked too much. That won't cost you in the long run. You do, I believe, have some options on the bench to help fill in the void, including another huge waiver wire pickup that I'm circling down here. Because again, as I mentioned before, the Rams apparently have an offense this year, and they're not scared to use it. Jeff, unfortunate, buddy. You did have a great Thursday with Smith coming out and massively overperforming. He was just outside of our top 5 wide receivers. But I think the biggest problem with you is you went into the Monday night. You definitely had a shot at it. It would not be shocked if Cleveland game goes different, if this actually ends up being a matchup that you win, or it certainly should have been closer. But unfortunately, buddy, you lost your Chubb. And as far as I've heard, medical science can't do much about this one. There's no pill to fix him. That knee just went sideways. So we're going to look at your depth here. I think in terms of running back, you also, unfortunately, Williams is a injury concern. So I think we see, Monty is going to be an injury concern for a bit. So it wouldn't shock me. In fact, I already know you went and picked up someone. You probably meant to pick up somebody else, but some jerk store overpaid for him. Sorry about that, pal. But if we'll get to my team in a second, I'm willing to talk deals. But Higgins and Smith coming back have to be good for you. Purdy wasn't so cute this week because, again, the Rams have been a little bit mischievous. But I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. Geno Smith coming back, I really just think it's going to be you trying to cover some of these injuries and see how you go. But the way things are going, people seem to be dropping like flies by the week, so I don't think you'll be alone for too much longer. Anywho, unfortunate, Jeff, you do fall to 0-2. Gene, 1-1, so you're right in the dance. It looks like most of us are split, except for a couple exceptions, so you're right there in it. So congratulations, pal. 1-1's not a bad place to be after 2 weeks. All right, in terms of Rennie and I'm just bummed because literally last Wednesday, I'm like, remember to send a message to Rennie to make a side bet about this week. And I didn't, and I should have. Every time I make a side bet, though, he wins, so maybe it was best. It was supposed to be close, but unfortunately, you're someone who's been suffering the Burrow calf. It's super frustrating. I think we all know as athletes, your knee, your ankle, your hips, you know how to kind of even like shoulders back. They can be pretty clear on when your recovery is supposed to be and if you're 100%. As far as I've understood, it's a lot of his calf is part of the issue, and you can't really test it until you're out there. So they keep putting him out there, and he keeps underperforming. I don't know if it's the injury or not, but sorry, pal, he's really been sinking you down. Aside from that, but you got 2 cheeks from Mooney, and he didn't do much for you. And then your running backs kind of let you down. But Kelsey's back. Your receivers are looking okay. So again, I don't know if we need to hit the panic button. I think you just need maybe a little bit of depth help. But again, receivers seem to be a strength for you. Akers for them just not playing, I think it's hilarious. They did this to him last year where they just didn't play him. McVay pretends he doesn't exist. He asked for a trade. They kind of cross their hands like little kids, and then suddenly he ends up playing by midway through the year. So who knows? You can be patient or, drop him like you saw it. Up to you. For me, it was more consistency. You probably already noticed I just straight up dropped Kyle Pitts for Zach Ertz. Let that one sink in just for a second. But I can't play the Pitts game. So if anyone's looking to be super frustrated with their tight end, go ahead. I didn't even want to try and trade him just because if any of you would have accepted the trade, I would have thought less of you. My QBs, I can't seem to get two going at the same time, but my running backs have just been huge. I got three here. Robinson has been massive for me already. He was the number 3 overall this week in terms of the position, and then White and Walker did just fine. My receivers hit or just went below. And I don't know if you noticed, folks, but I do have some running back depth. I just got Cleveland's backup. Kamara coming back next week. Cook went off. 3 running backs here. Just saying hypothetically, there's a couple people, Rennie, Jeff, that are having some issues with running back depth. What starts with T and ends with Raid? I don't know. I'll leave that riddle up to you. But anyway, I lit my way to 1-1. Rennie, buddy, 0-2. Come on, man. I know we're not in the drink league here, but force yourself. Buy everyone you can drinks if you lose next week. Because if you make a bet and you do something, you will liven up. You will start winning. I have faith. So, bummer, buddy. But if anyone can come back from 0-2, it's you. And I'm split. So what can I say? I'm actually kind of happy. All right, our other undefeated gentleman, Woody and the Hedgehogs, congratulations on going 2-0. Tim, we're going to get to you in just a second, but we're going to need some life advice here. After the Thursday, I thought you could be both happy, sad, right? Hurts went off, but Brown didn't do a whole lot for you. Obviously you were active on the waiver wire as per usual. I think we're going to find out later on that you're probably leading the league in moves as you tend to do. Nico Collins, though, was huge for you. I played him in a couple leagues and he pissed me off because I'm like, Nico freaking Collins is going to burn me. Houston, put them on the list of the teams that turns out they have an offense and they're not scared to use it because he's going off and a few of the other guys are as well. So keep an eye on that. Unfortunately for you got to play the Barkley watch. Having already dealt with Eckler last week, you picked up his replacement. Barkley is going to be someone that I don't think we know at this point, but unfortunately, I think if we need to double check, he plays on Thursday. Now, it was a hell of a matchup anyway that maybe you didn't want to get into, but for him to recover that fast, let's see how it goes. You do have some depth here, though. You had a guy that I'm currently circling right now in Miami that I was our running back too, so I would say he's an even plug and play for you there. But we'll see how it goes. If you haven't already made about 7 moves, I'll be shocked. So I don't think there's going to be an issue there. Timmer, buddy. You're just leading the league and keeping people in who are hurt. You had Jones in, and I know he wasn't a for sure like Cup, so I know you were paying attention, but he killed you there. I mean, it wasn't that big of a difference. Maybe 1 or 2 things bouncing your way could have helped out. Jefferson's still been consistent for you. Baker Mayfield turns out, and slinging Sammy Howell, you are making the best out of your quarterback situation. It's just unfortunate. Hall was a gem for you last week. Kind of sad on it this week. You're another guy that's got some young talent here, and I think it's going to be interesting. Do you have the patience to wait some of these folks out, or are you going to want to pull the trigger and make a couple moves? I do think there's an IR spot you can use in this league. I can double check for you. I meant to put one in. If I didn't, I can't change it this year, but I will next year. But that doesn't help you out. It would just open up a bench spot for you for a couple weeks. But with the injury bug kind of popping in, we'll see how Jones goes for next week, and maybe you could be back in action. But let's just hope that by week 3 you can have a matchup with everybody on your team is healthy and actually plays. If not, we could give Turner a call. That help Pato do some co-managing situations so he can keep an eye on it for you. Just joking, pal. It's just bad luck. But here's hoping you do actually have a healthy roster next week because it always makes it a little bit more fun. But you're still 1-1, so you're just in the dance, and you're in the mix with the rest of us. Matty, congrats, buddy. You're one of our 2 undefeated teams, so good luck in week 3. All right, as we formally go here from week 2 to week 3, checking out some of the matchups. Now, again, people maybe haven't put their roster people in yet, but it does look like we have some decent matchups. With this sheer volume of 1-1s, we're going to have a lot of the standoffs here, like the 1-1 down here. We got another one here. Woody's going to be putting his undefeated streak up against Gene, who right now it looks like it could be a close call. We do have our 0-2, our 2-0-2, sorry, making a run for it. Rennie's going to try and see what he can do against our week 2 overall winner there. And Jeff bumps into our number 1 overall, so no rest for the wicked there. So let's see if we can get a more equitable league or if we're going to have our winners kind of gap them. In terms of moves, like I said, I think hopefully the waiver budget everyone's kind of familiar with. It looks like people have been using it for the most part. Not surprisingly, we do have a league leader in moves made. Congrats. I think there's a few of us that are following suit, so congrats to the Koopa Troopers and Gene for being as close as you can. But I mean, if I was in Vegas, I'd be betting Woody as our top move maker on a yearly basis. I wouldn't be shocked if by the time I post this video, he's already got 3 more moves that he's made. But hey, an active GM is always a happy GM, right? That's it for week 3. For week 2, heading into week 3. Coming up, just as an FYI, I do have a few weeks. I'm still going to try and do these because I actually really have a fun time doing it. Even I haven't been annoyed with my own voice quite yet. But we do have guests coming into town, so it's going to be a little bit trickier next week. The following week, I start a little bit of a travel, which in 3 weeks, for those in Kenya, I think will have me going there. I did actually sign up, and I finally got my Swiss ID, so it looks like in a couple weeks I'll be coming there. But I'm still going to be trying to record on the road, just if they're a little bit delayed. Wait, I don't know what else to tell you. Anyway, dudes, hopefully everyone's doing well. Congrats on a week 2. Congrats to our league leaders, and good luck everyone for week 3.